We celebrate Veterans Day on the anniversary of the armistice that ended World War I. The armistice that began on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. The timing of this holiday is quite deliberate in terms of historical fact. But somehow it always seems quite fitting to me that this day comes deep in autumn, when the colors are muted and the days seem to invite contemplation. It is, in a way, an odd thing to honor those who died in defense of our country in wars far away. The imagination plays a trick. We see these soldiers in our mind as old and wise, but most of them were boys when they died, and they gave up two lives, the one they were living and the one they would have lived. When they died, they gave up their chance to be husbands and fathers and grandfathers. They gave up their chance to be revered old men. They gave up everything for our country, for us. And all we can do is remember. I will not fail thee nor forsake thee. In memory of those who gave the last full measure of devotion, may our efforts to achieve lasting peace gain strength. Let us make a vow to our dead. Let us show them by our actions that we understand what they died for. Strengthened by their courage, heartened by their value, and borne by their memory, let us continue to stand for the ideals for which they lived and died.
Good afternoon. My name is Nazario. I'm the president of the Baker High School Alumni Association. And as I promised to you folks that we was going to interview our veterans, regardless of which service they were in, Army, Navy, Marine Corps, even well, that's the Women's Air Corps right now. So here today, as my first guest, is Mr. Lance Hartman, class of 1968?
Yes.
68. And Lance, tell us, what made you decide to join the Navy?
Well, my dad was a career flag officer stationed at Fort Benning. That's where we retired. I was number 13 in the lottery, and I was doing my student teaching at Eddy Junior High when I got a draft notice in the mail, and I decided I didn't want to go to Vietnam, so I joined the Navy because I didn't see a whole lot of the Navy on the news, so I was stupid enough to think they weren't too involved. So I went in the Navy and had an opportunity to extend my career after A school, and went into special operations, and when I finished that, I went to South Vietnam.
I see. So when you got out of high school, you didn't go to college, you just
I did.
Oh, you did?
I did. I went to 2 years at Young Harris in North Georgia when I got my draft notice, and when I got stateside, I finished up my degree at Troy State.
Okay, that's interesting, very interesting. Also, where did you go for your basic, what year was that?
I went to Orlando, Naval Recruit Training Command, 1971. From there, I went to San Francisco to A school and then San Diego.
What kind of school in San Francisco?
What the Navy calls A school. It's for damage controlman and specialized in nuclear, biological, chemical warfare.
I see. So there wasn't a dull moment at all in your training, was there?
No.
No. Okay. So then, after you finish your, we call it in the Army AIT, what did you go after that?
After I finished A school, I went to San Diego for specialized training. And then I picked up a command in Little Creek, Virginia, and went to Southeast Asia, and that's where I spent three tours.
Okay, 3 tours.
Yes.
Okay, what year were you in Vietnam?
72 to March of 74. Right at the end of everything, when they were lifting everybody off the embassy building, we were either sinking patrol boats or turning them over to South Vietnamese Navy.
Okay. Now, you had 3 tours in Vietnam?
Yes.
My goodness. Your first time when you went to Vietnam, where did you go to?
Well, all three of the tours are basically on the Mekong River Delta or the Basak River Delta, one of the two.
I see. How do you feel? When you got to Vietnam, did you know you was going to be going up and down the river?
Pretty much, but you don't prepare yourself, or you can't prepare yourself until you've done it once anyway. But we had a good squadron leader who took the newbies aside and said, aside from what all the vets tell you, this is what you need to expect. And he didn't mix his words, cut any corners. He just put it out there like it was, and it held true.
Mm-hmm. On your first mission, approaching your first mission, how'd you feel? Were you scared? Were you worried?
Was I scared? Yeah, I was scared. I was worried. I was petrified, terrified. Any of the fights that you can name, I was there. But I was trained, well trained, and I knew what I needed to do. I had three shipmates on that boat that depended on me as I depended on them. And if I didn't do my job, it was going to cost them their lives, or could. So I just did what I had to do.
You know, it's amazing. I don't care what service you're in. When you're getting ready to face reality, everybody's together. Everybody's one.
Right.
Everybody's one. So that was your regular job, patrolling the Mekong Delta River?
Right. We were assigned to a mothership. In my case, it was USS Harnett County, and when we got off mission, we'd go back to her and we'd tether, what they called tether out. They had booms out to the side of the ship and floating gangways, so once you tied off, you could exit your ship and embark on the mothership, and that's where you ate, slept, got your hair cut, your meals, your pay, your rest, until you were called to mission out again.
Now, describe what kind of ship you were in.
It was big old rust bucket, nasty. Should have been mothballed or sunk back in World War II. It was old, but it had air conditioning and a little bit of hot water, and the only place we could eat 3 square meals when we were on board was with her.
Now, this is your patrol boats?
No, this is the mothership.
Oh, the mothership,
patrol,
okay.
I thought that's what, yeah, the patrol boats were just ski boats with guns, basically.
Were they brand new or were they from World War II?
No, these were new. The patrol boats that were in World War II, the Navy had kind of modified that idea, and those were called the Nasties, PTS, which were just a little bit smaller than the World War II patrol boats, but quite a bit bigger than a patrol boat river craft.
I see.
We were designed for river and canal interdictions, shallow draft vehicles.
What kind of armament did those boats have?
Very little. Ceramic plating around the gun turret, around the helmsman stand. A lot of guys modified their gun placements against Navy regs, but nonetheless we did it for self-protection. But typically just ceramic armament, and the holes had were plywood and foam. But they would sink if you, and it did happen. So
yeah. Now, did they have was it a 30 caliber or a 50 caliber?
I had twin 50s on the front, Ma Deuces. I had a 30 on port, 50 on starboard, and a M40 rocket launcher on the stern.
I see.
They were well armed.
That's good. How was your first experience? I'm sure you met the Viet Cong sometime in that evening. You know, I have heard that if you see some flashes on the river, you better start firing those flashes.
Pretty much, that was a rule of thumb. We did not have many missions that we did not encounter the Viet Cong, but we did a lot of good stuff. We'd leave the mothership with boxes of candy and maybe a box of rice or something, because the intelligence has said, you've heard the old adage, you can attract more bees with honey. So if you pulled a sampan over to do an interdiction check to make sure they weren't running arms or whatever, the local villagers, if you gave them candy or rice or trinkets, something like that, you could get pieces of information that could lead you to a Viet Cong hideout or a stash or something that you either got orders to move in on, or you passed it on to Navy Intel and let them deal with it.
Well, the general people, the general Vietnamese population, how did it treat you?
Well, our interaction with them was limited as far as our unit was, because what we saw were folks, fishermen on the rivers trying to make a living. We actually even traded percussion grenades to them to help them with their catch if it was going slow. So you made friends doing that. They recognized the boat crew or the hull number, and you recognized the folks on the boat, so you'd stop and talk to them regularly. But the ones that you were concerned with are the ones that tried to avoid all the boats that came up and down the river. They'd either go to the side and tie off, or they'd leave the boat, jump overboard, and swim to the bank, knowing that if they got caught, they were going to get handcuffed and turned over to the North or South Vietnamese forces.
How did, you might know, might not know, how did the regular Vietnamese people feel about the North Vietnamese? If you know.
The few that I heard talk about it, and here again, what I know came from an interpreter. We had a South Vietnamese officer on board with us as an interpreter. They did not like them. They didn't like being forced to change the way that they did their business and pay their taxes. That's one of the worst things that was going on. They're held up for everything they had, just about it.
I think that the regular North Vietnamese people were just like you and I, regular people, living from day to day, but they were forced. I understand that. And when did you get out of the service, out of the Navy?
Well, I retired in '99.
Oh, you retired.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I failed to ask you, when you went in, since you went to college before, were you an officer or enlisted man?
I did do a stint as a commissioned officer, and they told me that I couldn't stay in the billet I was in. I'd have to give it up, and to keep my rank, I'd have to transfer to a supply unit. And that just doesn't sit well with somebody that's seen action before. I'm not a pencil pusher, so I resigned and went back to being enlisted.
Well, one good question from an Army to a Navy guy. What rank was that?
Lieutenant.
Oh, you're lieutenant. Okay.
Now I'm going to ask you a question.
Is that the same thing as the Army lieutenant?
No.
There's a difference. Okay.
Captain.
Oh, a lieutenant is equal to a captain in the Army?
Mm-hmm.
Good God. I don't understand the Navy or the Marine Corps ranking. Lance, is there anything else you'd like to say maybe to all the veterans? I'm trying to encourage all you veterans to come over here and tell your story, because you're not going to hear what's happened over there unless you talk to a veteran like Lance. And I'm encouraging all you people looking, watching this video, give me a call, send me a message, Nazario 43@AOL.com. I'd be glad to interview you, Lance, is there anything else you would like to add?
Nothing other than, as a veteran, I like to thank all the Baker alumni that have served, be it male or female, regardless of what you did. And, if you counted pencils or if you flew bombers, it doesn't matter. If you served, you're a veteran, and you should always keep that in mind and keep your head up. This country owes everybody a deep debt of gratitude. So just keep on.
You know, veterans, they're very special to me too. I didn't pay no attention to it while I was in, but now I see them. And to me, a veteran is he or she that served with dignity. And especially we, from Baker High School, we have lots of veterans. Lance, I want to thank you very much.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
I'm glad you was able to come with us. And with that, we're going to end this segment, and we'll be ready for the next segment soon. Thank you.